Hey, folks, welcome to Affiliate Nerd Out. I am your nerderator, Dustin House, spreading that good word about affiliate marketing. You're going to find me every Tuesday and Thursday right here on LinkedIn Live at 12:15 Pacific time. So mark it on your calendars and smash that subscribe button. My guest today, it's a dual guest show. First off, into the Nerdatorium is going to be David Pickard, CEO over at Finexa. Welcome to the Nerdatorium, Dave.
Thanks very much. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And joining us today as well is Sevada Markosyan, CEO over at Profitize and Zero Parallel. Thank you for joining me as well, sir.
Thanks for having us, Dustin.
Awesome. We're going to be doing some live Q&A. We are live on LinkedIn. We started a little bit late with some technical difficulties, but we're going to prevail today. So if you have any questions, please drop them into the chat and let us know what you want to know about Finexa and anything else today. The question of the day is, what tools do you use to improve your workflows? So if you've got some suggestions on things that are working for you, please throw them into that chat room. But without further ado, Dave, who are you?
I am Dave, CEO of Finexa UK. I am 31 years old or young, depending on what side of age you are, I guess. I started in the space 9 years ago. I actually worked that out 10 minutes ago. I hadn't realized. So I started in 2012 in the affiliate space. I guess it started as like a side hustle, as the kids these days would call it, which subsequently led me to partner with the founder of a group of companies consisting of an affiliate network, a list management firm, an FCA-regulated credit brokerage in the UK. If you haven't noticed by now, I am from the UK. And so, yeah, specialized in credit and insurance and financial services predominantly, and then partnered with the founder of Finexa, David, some 6 years ago. And that's an even longer story, but that's what's drawn me here.
Beautiful. Sev, how about you?
I don't have as nice of an accent as Dave does, but I'll explain my background a little bit. So I came from a very different industry. Most of my experience was in management and building teams, but I came from the hospitality world about almost 4 years ago. And I joined digital marketing, lead generation space. And so now I'm the CEO of Zero Parallel and Profitize. And we are the largest lead gen network in short-term loans and a few other verticals within the Zero Parallel side. Profitize as a lead gen is also growing substantially with different verticals. But my experience grew pretty quickly while I joined Zero Parallel, mainly because of the leadership that I think was here before me, was able to expedite how fast I was able to learn everything within the industry. And after countless conferences and chatting with a lot of buyers and affiliates, I was able to succeed in my role as CEO.
Excellent. We'll get into more about what your companies do here in a second. If you'd like to be a guest over and take that hot seat, go to dustinhouse.com/nerd, drop an application, and see what we can nerd out about. Let's start off with Finexa. What do you guys do, and who are you serving here, Dave?
So we serve pretty much anyone in the customer acquisition space. So whether that's media buyers, affiliates, brands, anyone looking to grow their book of customers or generate customers for other product providers. You heard me mention a second ago, we kind of started in the financial services space. That was my background. That was our background. A particularly good space for us to start in because it's a pretty technologically advanced space in general, and we found that actually there was an opportunity to take that one step further in terms of marketing attribution and all the kind of nerdy stuff that I guess we can dive deeper into a little bit later, but that was really where we spawned out of. But yeah, really anyone looking to generate customers and track their marketing from an end-to-end perspective, all the way from first impression, where this customer has first seen your advertising, all the way through to final destination of buying your product.
Excellent. And As far as the clientele that you're serving, do you find it more that brands are coming to you or that affiliates are coming to you to employ your services?
Both, definitely initially affiliates. Like that was where we came from. And we did a lot of business from word of mouth, that kind of domino effect in the industries where people are like, hey, what software are you using? Oh, I'm using this, it's working really well. Cool, I'm going to do it too. Anyone scaling things aggressively tends to work really nicely from a word of mouth domino effect, and that was really great for us. Certainly early days when I first started working here back in 2017. But recently, brands are certainly becoming more on board, whereas they are becoming more technologically equipped to, like I said a second ago, grow their customer base. They are understanding the importance of tracking and understanding the importance of knowing where I can go and get my customers and having a seamless and effective way of integrating with their introducers, their affiliates, their publishers, whoever it may be, to get those customers to them and then report back to them on the outcome of those customer acquisitions. So did they actually buy their product? And when they did buy their product, how to tell them to go and do more of that and do it all automatically. Don't take manual CSV exports and analysis and pivot charts and all that kind of stuff out of the equation and do it all quickly. Work smart, not hard.
Beautiful. All right. And Sev, tell us about Zero Parallel and Profitize.
So Zero Parallel is a lead generation network. So is Profitize. Zero Parallel is the bigger company out of the two. We are like I mentioned, largest lead generation network in short-term loans within the country. We service lenders that are looking for short-term loans, and we have probably the biggest buying power between a combination of, close to a little above 180 lenders that we work with. We also have affiliate marketers that work with us that generate leads for short-term loans. And there's an equal amount, if not more, affiliates that we work with as well. So our audience is mainly the affiliates that generate leads, as well as the lenders that purchase the leads. We also operate in the call space with call leads as well. Zero Parallel is also in the debt relief space. And with Profitize, we've expanded into solar panel leads, auto insurance, life insurance, and we're growing even further with more verticals coming into next year.
Beautiful. And where does that bring you guys as a relationship? How did you guys hook up and partner up?
So Zero Parallel actually uses Finexa as the software, so does Profitize. And so we're one of the clients for Finexa, and we use Finexa within our internal software on a day-to-day basis.
Good to go. All right. Let's get into the education portion of this. We're here to learn more about what call leads, email, and SMS marketing capabilities are. Email has been hot over the last 10 years. Call leads, SMS marketing are really ramping up nowadays. Call leads, what are they? Can you guys explain this to me?
Yeah, I can start off with it. So we have affiliates that generate calls instead of web leads, and I think this has, in certain verticals, it's probably the only thing that works, and in some verticals, it's the most popular way to generate a call is served better than generating a web lead. And so call leads would be an affiliate marketing a phone number that, as a network, we would provide them, and they would be able to market it in different fashions, either through email marketing, SMS marketing, displayed in certain ads, put it on their home pages. And so when a consumer calls that phone number, there's different routes that they can take, either through an IVR that's pre-recorded or a call center agent as a warm transfer, or it just goes directly to the buyer. But the reason call leads are becoming more popular, which we'll talk a little bit about, is because most of the buyers are looking to have better contact rates, where call leads at least guarantee them that they're going to be able to speak to the consumer, as opposed to web leads, where a certain portion of their leads they pay for, but they never get a chance to speak to anybody. And the contact rates become an issue. Call leads is, I think, more difficult to, if you have the right tools in place, which we could discuss, to have fraud get through. as opposed to web leads, which is a little bit more vulnerable in that area. And call leads also, buyers tend to pay higher for call leads as opposed to web leads too. So for all those reasons, call leads, I think, are really the route to go. And I know we're going to chat about it as I've requested, but I think with the new FCC ruling that's come out as of last week, call leads are probably going to be the forefront of a potential solution for a lot of people that are looking at what options they can go down now that things are going to, the landscape of the industry is going to change going into 2024.
Excellent. So traditionally, when I got into this industry 13 years ago, like the pay-per-call industry was just in its infancy. Is there a big difference between the call leads and what we used to call pay-per-call, or is that term dead and nobody wants to talk about it anymore? It's like a whisper now.
I think it's just expanded. There's still pay-per-call, but pay-per-call, obviously, now that people are generating call leads through a lot of other different avenues with their marketing efforts, pay-per-call has just become one avenue of how they're doing it. But now with email marketing and everything else, and the different payout structures that buyers are now, getting involved in, durations of calls are changing as far as how long a call needs to last before a buyer actually pays for it. There's other models where the buyers are also paying for the call only after it converts, and conversions can mean different things based on the buyer. So terminology, I think, has changed, but the solution to it hasn't.
I think that the thing that we've noticed has changed quite a lot as well is the term, I guess, the phrase intent. That's kind of the point behind the pay-per-call space. It's to Sev's point earlier on. You're trying to generate a customer that is further down that sales cycle than potentially just a web lead that's put their data in on a website, and you may or may not contact them. We speak to clients that come to us and say, "Hey, I generate 100,000 web leads, and my contact rate's 15%." I'm like, "Cool. So you want to speak to these customers, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Cool. How about you generate some calls then?" And it's just, it sounds simple. It sounds like an absolute no-brainer. Where they're like, "What do you mean? I could just tell these customers to call me?" And it's about getting those customers that are already quite far down that sales cycle to actually call you, and actually having a metric in place, a tooling system in place to qualify those customers too. So in the UK, we had a industry called hotkeys, which was when I was in the insurance space some sort of 10 years ago, we used to buy hotkeys, and they were essentially a call center, phoning the phone book. As soon as someone picks up, they hotkey them straight through to you. "Hey, these guys want to buy your product." And you speak to the customer at the end of the line, and they're like, "Hey, who are you? Why did you call me? Where'd you get my number from?" And bringing into play a marketing approach to this, whereby you're actually placing these phone numbers on your landing pages and your email creatives, and wherever your marketing collateral is around, and qualifying those customers then via a process, whether it be a dynamic IVR system on the phone to actually find out what the customer is interested in, and then sending that customer to the destination that can actually give them that product. That, I guess, the phrasing and the terminologies are fairly similar, and there's certainly a crossover between a lot of them. But really, that's the meaning. That's our meaning of pay-per-call these days, anyway.
Gotcha. And is there any particular verticals, niches that call leads are really utilized? I can't envision this in like a small consumer e-commerce product, but for things in the solar or the finance industry, this might make a lot of sense. What are some of the bigger niches in here?
I think the solar, the debt relief, and the insurance space are significantly more targeted towards, or they're starting to become more targeted towards call leads as opposed to just web leads or clicks. So if you're within one of those verticals going into next year, especially, you definitely want to generate call leads if you're not already doing so. Payouts are also very different too. A buyer's willing to pay sometimes double, if not triple, the value of the lead if they're buying a call lead, where they usually have about 120-second duration where they can speak to the consumer before they actually have to consider it a billable lead, as opposed to paying for a click or paying for just a web lead, whether it redirects or it doesn't redirect.
Awesome. And you bring up a great point with the timing of the calls. Duration of the calls may decipher what commission level you give an affiliate for the quality of calls that they're bringing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of buyers, I think, regardless of which industry you're in, generally when they're purchasing a call lead, in most cases would rather have at least 120-second duration before they would even consider it a call lead that they would pay for. So it's an industry standard where everybody's at least familiar with it if you're generating calls. And I think as you start generating calls, you'll realize that even consumers that maybe don't qualify for that buyer's criteria for the product that they're providing, the call will still most likely last more than 120 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of the 120 seconds isn't necessarily for them to have their agents vet that consumer to a point where they can really see if it's going to convert or not. It's more intended to make sure that there's an actual consumer on the other end, and they're not just paying for robots calling in or some level of fraud coming through the cycle that they have.
Gotcha. And so you're almost trying to disqualify leads more than actually qualify them for who they are. Okay, gotcha. And in terms of like the biggest benefits that call leads are bringing to the table, my initial thought is, consumers all act a different way. Some don't want to make a phone call. I personally never call any companies. It's just not how my mind works. I want to do my research online, but there are people out there that would be more comfortable just taking a phone call and getting it into it. So what are some of those bigger benefits from call leads?
So to my point earlier, bringing those warmer intent customers further down the sales cycle quicker. So to your point saying, you're not someone that is comfortable doing that, but you admitted you're someone that you would carry out your own research. So what we are seeing now is people are carrying out more of their own research. And when they do that, they're also doing that on their mobile devices. So what that then opens up is the fact that, customer search has increased. I think there was a report last year, I think from a Forrester, a data science company, that callers then convert 30% faster than web leads. They spend 28% more, and they have a 28% higher retention rate. So when clients start doing this, and when media buyers start doing this and realizing this, it's very difficult to then go backwards. Once you start seeing the effects of these higher conversion rates, it's very difficult to then turn around. 63% of so there's 8.5 billion Google searches per day last year. And 63% of those are on a mobile device these days. So as much as, people will say, yeah, maybe I'm someone that's not comfortable calling. I'm personally someone that wouldn't always necessarily call. But the fact of the matter is you're missing out on a huge pot of data, pot of consumers, pot of customers that you can get your services in front of if you are ignoring them.
Beautiful. Dave's absolutely right. And I think the benefit's different for obviously the affiliate as opposed to the buyer, right? The buyer's benefits are fairly clear. Contact rates are better. They have consumers that have better intent, right? Somebody getting on a phone call usually has more intent to try to buy a product in most cases than somebody completing a form on a web lead. Fraud is more difficult to do on a call lead. Most fraudsters that we've seen, for example, in the short-term loan space, there's been spikes of that over the last 2 years, and we've put in significant amount of fraud tools to try to catch as much of the fraud that we can on the web lead side. We haven't seen that same level of effort from a lot of these fraudsters on the call lead side, mainly because there's easier tools I think you could implement to catch fraud on call leads. And most fraudsters that are trying to do something in scale don't really want to go through the process of the call lead where they actually have to be on a phone with an agent. Even before that's considered maybe a billable lead, whereas a web lead, they get to hide behind the screen and put in automated setups to do it. So it becomes an easier process, I think, for them than going through the call lead setup. So as an affiliate, I think if you're in a space where the buyers are all looking for call leads, it already is incentive enough, right? Web leads can maybe generate you a certain amount of volume, even if you're generating less volume with call leads, which is typically the case. You're going to get better payouts for those calls. And there's certain platforms where call marketing a phone number is more preferred, or it's easier and maybe more cost effective than marketing a website, where you also have to factor in certain click-through rates that are, I think, less evident on the call side, because the questions on a call are shorter than the questions you might need to fill out on a full form.
Gotcha. And you bring up a great point with the fraud prevention aspects. I feel like AI scripts are coming into play very heavily in our industry right now, and frauding your traditional web leads rather than a call lead, it would take a lot of work to create something super processed in the AI version to interpret or create a fake phone call. That would be next level stuff. So I love that you guys are protecting from there. Can you give us a few examples, maybe in the finance space, that would of what call leads would look like and how they're beneficial to a company?
Yeah, I know specifically in the debt relief space, for example, call leads are more beneficial mainly because the debt product itself is a difficult product um, to explain through a web lead process. Most consumers that are applying for debt relief sometimes get confused with the fact that they feel like they're going to get a loan. And a debt relief program isn't a loan, right? And a lot of affiliates, when they market debt relief, may market it perfectly, but the consumer may still interpret it as, oh, I'm going to get a loan to help me with this debt that I've piled up on my credit cards. But that's not really the intent of that particular product. So I think getting the consumers through a call lead, either to speak to a live agent first before you actually process that lead to the debt buyers, and have the agent vet them, explain certain processes of the debt program to them, makes it easier than them just looking at the screen and seeing an ad or going through a 6 or 7 page form, is more valuable. And the debt buyers are paying significantly more for those calls. To give you an example, if you have decent quality debt relief web leads, you might get buyers to pay you in the range of $30 to $40 to $50 per lead. And if you have calls that you're generating that are very high quality calls, debt buyers may pay in the ranges of $80 to $100 or more for those calls. And so you're going to get better payouts for them, and more intent customers for the debt space. So debt relief next year is probably going to be the biggest year in that industry. We've all seen stats of credit card debt in the United States being the highest it's ever been. And so that's not going away anytime soon with the inflation rates that we have, and people just piling more and more on credit card debt. So the debt relief space is definitely going to be in their peak for probably another 2 to 3 years at a very minimum. I know some experts are expecting that to last for at least 5 years or more. So if you want to be a serious affiliate within the debt relief space, web leads can drive some level of volume and quality for you, but the call leads are really where the debt buyers are going to be the most interested.
Also often a regulatory perspective that you're solving some problems. And I'm going to speak to the UK here. UK is known to being pretty ahead of its time in terms of regulation. I say ahead of its time in terms of enforcing things pretty quickly. So I think we're going to get onto it a little bit later, but things like GDPR came into effect in 2018. But the regulations in the UK, particularly in spaces like the debt space, they actually stipulate that you have to speak to these customers before they enter into a debt relief program of any sorts. So some sort of technology solutions that we've built for our clients in that space is, and by the way, we recommend this to most people when we're talking about calls. We're not sort of saying, hey guys, you should only do calls. It's a case of, hey, you should do anything and everything that converts. That's the point of Finexa. Let's track what converts and do more of the stuff that works well, do less of the stuff that doesn't. And then, you do that every day, you end up in a pretty good place. So some of the solutions we've helped them with is like lead nurturing campaigns where they'll buy a consumer, they'll buy a web lead. They know that they eventually have to speak to that customer. That customer's gone through some kind of validation process. They've done a form fill to tell you about them. You've then validated their email, their cell phone number, and make sure that you can actually contact them. You may do some other checks to make sure they are who they say they are, and then you may engage in some kind of two-way SMS or WhatsApp conversation with them to actually nurture them around to coming around to the idea of, hey, guess what? This is a product that you may not want to be that excited about talking to us about, but ultimately we need to talk to you, and you're kind of nurturing them down this path. And then you're offering, and I think we're going to get onto this in a second, like a click to call solution where you're saying, hey, you are someone that we can help. We are a provider that can help you. Our agent is ready to go. Call this number, but call it when you're ready. Could do it now. If you're ready to go, call it 4 p.m. this evening if it's better for you to talk then, with the end result of just being, let's just funnel these customers down this sales cycle as neatly as we can and report on every element of that as we go.
Beautiful. We will get into the SMS marketing and the click to call as well, but I want to jump into that FCC ruling that I keep hearing about from you guys. What is this? I'm not involved enough in this industry, but what's going on that's so important?
So FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, basically came out with a ruling the day before Thanksgiving, which was great for everybody as we got that news. But it's been news, obviously, that's been building up over time. And they're looking at, there's multiple layers to this, but the most important for anybody in the lead gen space is that they are trying to impose a single seller rule for robotexting and robocalling, which ultimately means if you're a lead generator, you're an affiliate generating leads or sending SMS messages, they want the consumer to basically consent individually to one buyer that you're going to pass that lead to. Now, a lot of pushback has come to the FCC from everybody in the lead gen space because the way they're asking for this to be done is very unrealistic in a lot of people's opinions, and it's very unreasonable because as a lead gen or as a affiliate, you don't necessarily know the buyer that you're going to pair this consumer with prior to processing that lead or that call. And so it becomes near to impossible to try to get consent for that specific buyer before you pass the lead to them. And so there's certain ways to go around it, but the main purpose of this rule is to say, if you are sending robotext messages to consumers, your brand specifically, number one, needs to have consent from that consumer to be able to send it. You can no longer share consent with other marketing partners. And when you're driving consumers to a website, or if you're sending them to any type of offer page, you have to get consent for the actual end buyer that's providing the product to that consumer before you can have that buyer call that consumer through a robocall. And so the most important newest, I guess the details here are really what's important. This entire rule is really related to robocalls and robotext messaging. So if you're generating leads or calls and you are your buyers are not robocalling or robotexting, this rule shouldn't affect you drastically. If you are providing leads exclusively or calls exclusively to one buyer and you're not doing multiple sales with the same lead, it again shouldn't affect you in a drastic way. The most important part here is this is going to shift a lot of the focus from web leads, in my opinion, to calls going into next year. Because if you're sending an SMS to the consumer because you have consent to send an SMS, which I think in general, everybody, that if you're sending an SMS to a consumer, you should have consent. And if you're sending an SMS to the consumer, instead of driving them down the web lead funnel, where you may have a difficult time getting a single buyer consent before processing that web lead, if you drive them to a call lead, then that consumer gets connected to the caller on the other end. There's no longer a robocall to be concerned about because it's an inbound call going to that buyer at this point. And so robocalls itself have a very vague definition from the FCC, so that becomes a very challenging thing. Even if you have agents from the buyer side clicking a phone number and have an agent waiting to speak to the consumer, in some areas that could still be considered a robocall because of the platform that they're using, and even if they're just clicking on a phone number to call. So it's a big rule that came out. There should be some clearer language sometime in January or February from the FCC. But the expectation is December 13 is when the rule is going to go to Congress, and it's expected to pass. I think it'd be surprising if it doesn't. More language will be available January or February, and the first implementations of this rule will be in probably anytime from June until October of next year. So there is some time. I don't think it's a reason for anybody to panic, but I think that people should be taking it seriously, and they should be putting some plans together for different scenarios that should come up.
Okay. So as a consumer, I should expect less robocalls is the gist of it.
The benefit is, yes, there's going to be less robocalls and robotexts. The negative overall impact is what it really does is it takes away options for consumers. Consumers that were able to go and get paired with multiple auto insurance companies or different solar companies for them to be able to have options. may not have those options anymore. And now they might get paired with only one buyer that maybe is the buyer willing to pay the most for that call or that lead, but it may not be the best buyer for their to service that consumer. So it's not necessarily a positive impact, although the FCC feels like it is. But if you ask any lead gen, any affiliate within the space that knows about this rule, I think there's a lot more hurt that comes with it than benefits.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for the explanation on that. That's good and bad news for the industry all around. But let's pivot into this click to call SMS. What exactly is this that you guys are doing here?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing, you want to go, Seth?
No, you go ahead first.
I guess the first thing is to define what it is. Essentially, it is the call to action to allow the customer to call your company via and deliver that via an SMS. The ways in which we're seeing it utilized is, again, cross industry. Brands, advertisers, publishers doing it most successfully. They're those that are pre-qualifying consumers in some manner to what I spoke about earlier, registering some kind of intent. So they know that the customer is who they say they are, looking for the thing that they say they're looking for. Thirdly, they have consent, to Seb's point earlier. If you're going to SMS these people, you make sure that you have consent to do so. And then your goal here is to, like you say, push them down that sales cycle funnel to ultimately get these customers on the phone. We usually see clients use it in conjunction with all of their other marketing methods to act as a nurturing tool. They can do the same thing via email. So you can do, click to call via SMS, click to call via email, lots of different methods. And in particular, use the software that we built to track where those calls are then coming from, rather than just using one generic phone number, work out, we have 1,000 calls coming in. No, okay, it's where did these calls come from? Which SMS creative did it come from? Which email creative did it come from? Which publisher did it come from? So that you can then go ahead and optimize the performance of those rather than just treat every single interaction equally. Does that tee you up nicely, Sev? How are you guys seeing it?
It's perfectly. I think SMS, especially going into next year, if you have consent to SMS a consumer, you're sitting on gold. Because there's going to be a lot of SMSers that currently are doing this that are going to need to change their model because they don't have direct consent from the consumer. Here's the caveat. It has to be direct consent from your brand to the consumer. So if you have direct consent with your brand to the consumer, those SMSs become significantly more valuable with this new ruling than before. And so if you have that and you're SMSing the consumer to get them on a phone call to be able to sell that call, it's a lot more valuable because SMS in general converts a lot better. You have higher click-through rates than doing any type of email marketing. Everybody knows this. And so now with limited players, which will be limited players in the space going into next year, if you have the consent for sending SMSs as opposed to emails, you're going to have probably one of the very few campaigns that generate high-quality converting calls that buyers are looking for. And if you were getting paid $100 a call, you're probably going to be able to get maybe double that going into next year. So it's almost going to place some level of a monopoly on a handful of people that can do this properly, meet all the requirements for SMS consent, and be able to do it at volume. And if you can be one of those players, or even if you could do it on a small scale, having small scale, efficient SMS campaigns that generate high value calls, I think is really the focus that people should be looking at.
Great. And with that, the phone number validation is a super important aspect of all of this. Like, who is monitoring this and giving those reports? Is that Finexa themselves? Is that the brand that has to buy something else? Who is doing this validation?
So in Finexa, we've built tooling to be honest, validate everything. I know we're talking about phone number validation here, but really, we want to allow clients to validate every lead equally, whether that's phone numbers, whether that's emails. It could be third-party database checks as well to make sure the consumer is or isn't part of a certain database, like a do not contact list, for example. These kinds of things that tees back to the FCC ruling again. Making sure that you have a tooling in place to cross-reference your data, make sure that you're treating it in the way that it should be treated, and then once you are able to treat it in the way you want to treat it, that the customers are who they say they are, and ultimately when a buyer is going to be taking this customer, they can deliver the product that the customer was looking for. So essentially that's how we built our tooling. One thing in a way that I guess we've built it is we wanted to build ours in a way which gives our clients flexibility over how they utilize that. So what you may see, and I've used third-party tools before for this kind of stuff, you can quite often be quite restricted about how you do this. You can only validate customers at a certain time in the journey. And when you validate them, you can only do certain things with them. So the ways in which we've utilized it is we can do it in multiple ways on API. You can do it on form fills. If you do it on a form fill, you can deliver another message to a customer to say, hey, your number looks like it's invalid. Go away and do this. Basically giving you control over doing it in all or none elements of the journey to make sure that ultimately you have built your lead generation campaign to work the way you want it to, and deliver leads that want what they say they want, and buyers are not going to be phoning you up saying, hey guys, I bought 1,000 leads off you, I've not spoken to anyone. How are you guys implementing it, Sev? Are you seeing similar kind of use case?
Yeah, I think obviously hitting the DNC list is critical as you work through anything, web leads or call leads. But phone number validation tools, obviously, they cost money no matter what platform you try to do it on. But I think they're more important for web leads, because on the call lead, you have a consumer on the call, you can pull up their caller ID, and you at least know that there's a consumer on the end and there's an actual phone number. And so it becomes less, I think, important, but it still is important. Like in some of our journeys, we'll have an IVR process when a consumer calls in, and we'll repeat their phone number back to them, ask them to confirm that it's the best phone number for them. They may be calling with the relative's phone number. They may be calling with a landline. We'll even ask them if it's a cell phone so that we have an idea if this is a consumer's cell phone or it's their home phone. So you can ask certain questions to at least validate what type of phone number they're calling with, if it is the best phone number for them. So when you pass that call over to a buyer and they're speaking to them and the call drops, sometimes they don't get a chance to collect the information right away. You've at least passed data to them in some regard to be able to have the correct phone number for that buyer. But on the web lead side, I think that's where really it's more important to try to validate through a database. I know Finexa offers that option. We utilize it in many scenarios where we'll ping Finexa's database to try to make sure we validate the phone number. It's a correct phone number. It's an actual phone number that a consumer or a buyer can reach out to before we even process that lead in many instances.
Gotcha. All right. One topic that is super important to a lot of my audience out there that are affiliate managers is GDPR compliance. How do we assure that the affiliates out there are promoting the brands with a call to lead, SMS marketing? What's some of those best practices they need to be utilizing to navigate GDPR compliance here?
Seb, do you want to kick this off? You guys deal with sort of publishers, I guess, promoting your offers, and then I can speak to some of the tooling that I guess we've seen work well.
I mean, obviously, there's a very extensive vetting process with any of our affiliates that we work with. Some affiliates, depending on the marketing method that they're generating traffic, we may or may not provide them our offers to use. And sometimes we'll give them just our forms to use on certain sites, which then we'll also still be vetting them thoroughly to make sure their sites are compliant. We'll check everything. I mean, on their sites, material disclosures, privacy policies, terms of use, all of that has to go through a compliance check on our side. We'll make sure that they're marketing in a way that is relevant to the products that we're offering. And we'll make sure that we keep track of their traffic as they turn live. You might vet an entire affiliate from A through Z in the beginning. You turn them live. You see the type of traffic coming in. It doesn't quite look like it's the type of traffic they told you it was going to be. And so it's still really your responsibility as a network to continue going through that process and making sure that all the things that they said it was going to be is still the right way. And I think if you're familiar with the space, when you're looking at lead quality coming in, you can generally get a good gauge whether it's the marketing method they said it was going to be, they're using the right sites to market your product, and having an onboarding call with an affiliate to make sure, number one, it's the same person that you're talking to on the other end. Make sure it's a live person that you're talking to. All of that checks off. But That process is pretty strict on our side, and we probably approve maybe 1 out of 10 affiliates that we talk to. We get a lot of requests, so it's not to say that we're rejecting a lot of people, but we do have to make sure everybody goes through the right process.
For sure.
I guess we're pretty well versed in it as well. Having a UK office, GDPR was first launched there, 25th of May, 2018. Not that I'm a loser and remember the day very well. It was a fun time preparing for that. And so I guess from our standpoint as a software provider, we've kind of seen our role in this is just making sure that we can be helpful to our clients to ensure that they have full control over their data processing procedures, giving them full visibility of what happens to consumers in the system. Like I said earlier, it's an end-to-end tracking platform. So customer arrives, what happens to them next? Where do they go? What validation, qualification processes they need to go through? And then secondly, some clever, cool, nerdy, if you want to call it that, detection tools to make sure that when an affiliate is saying, hey, I'm generating traffic via these methods, you actually have a way of going away and auditing that. So we have tools whereby if they're using forms within the system, the forms can detect actually which landing page they came from, which website they came from, so you can't have the wool pull over your eyes. Your compliance team can go away and audit this stuff. We have clients who have way bigger compliance teams than they do commercial teams because there's that's just the way of the landscape these days. But it's a full-time job. There's enough stuff there for them to go away and audit. We're also SOC 2 certified. I will say that that's a fun process that we do. I think it's annually or biannually. So from a data protection perspective, clients can be assured that the data is safe at all times.
Excellent. All right, guys, as we wind down here, I want to be respectful of your time here. What is the last thing we want to mention is what's an affiliate manager to do if they want to get started at the SMS and call lead tracking and implement this into their strategy? What's the first thing? I've got a QR code to go see more about Finex up here, but what's that first step to do?
Bev, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think, if you're generating calls or leads and you want to work with Zero Parallel or profitize in any of the verticals, go onto our sites, sign up as an affiliate, and you should usually get somebody to reach out to you within the same day, set up a call, go through the onboarding process. We'll provide you compliance information, guide you through the process. We work with affiliates that are just getting started in the space and don't really have a whole lot of knowledge within the verticals that they're even trying to tap into. And we work with affiliates that are the biggest in their entire space. So depending on your size, big or small, we can put you on the right path and guide you through the right process. But first step is to obviously reach out to us. And, we're pretty well versed in everything that's happening within our markets currently and what's to come into the next year. So we may have some insight into maybe what you should be doing, not what you're doing currently.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you both for joining me today. Our next session of Affiliate Nerd is going to be Thursday at 1:15 Pacific. That's with Johnny Page over at SaaS Academy. It's going to be awesome. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on and educating us all on SMS and call leads. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dustin.
Likewise. Thanks, Dustin. Enjoyed it.
All right, folks. Keep on recruiting, and we'll see you out there.
Take care, guys.